We now have the pleasure of being joined by Scott Mutryn, the radio sideline reporter for Boston College, and of course, former Boston College quarterback. Scott, I think just starting with Boston College, if you look at their season last year, they get to the bowl game, they get 6 wins, and then the head coach leaves for the NFL, bring in a former head coach, kind of Bill O'Brien. What was going through your mind when kind of that whole transition went down, when Hafley kind of left a little bit unexpectedly, and then BC brings in a former NFL coach and Bill O'Brien?
Well, it definitely wasn't a little bit unexpected. It was a lot bit unexpected, and to be able to get the quality of head coach that BC got in Bill O'Brien in that time period, when most everyone has set, all the coaches have moved, and the new hires have been hired. Extremely difficult to get quality people, and to be able to get someone like Bill O'Brien, who has college head coaching experience, NFL coaching head coaching experience, and coordinator experience. I mean, you couldn't have asked for any more.
How do you think, especially going into the year, that he built his culture and in that shorter time frame, kind of coming in after the main coaching carousel in the offseason?
Well, most of the offensive staff was kept intact. They kept a lot of people there, so that's able to at least build some symmetry and some constants there. Except for Will Long, the offensive coordinator, most everyone is back. Defensively, they brought in a whole new staff, but most of that staff kind of left with Coach Hafley to go to Green Bay, so it needed to be replaced anyway. So he was able to get an experienced defensive coordinator in Tim Lewis, and they made some good strides this year. But coaching is so important, but it's also the recruiting aspect and what you need. You need to be able to have good recruiters as well, and I think you see that with Fran Brown at Syracuse. There's a lot of great recruiters there. So I think Bill did a really good job of mixing some great coaching with experience, and then some younger guys that can come in and really make an impact on the recruiting trail.
BC definitely started off the year fast in year one, starting out 4-1, ranked team. Last 3 games have not gone the same way as the first five. What kind of has happened the last 3 games for Boston College, losing 3 straight going into the bye week?
It's actually kind of simple. They just haven't played a full 4 quarters, to be 100% honest. They'll have quarters of greatness or moments of greatness, but no consistency and no ability to really continue to perform at the level that got them either to the lead or maintain the lead. I think you see even in the last 2 games they won before with Western Kentucky and Michigan State, they started slow and had great finishes. But Virginia, a great start, a great first half, just about to put Virginia away at the end of the first half and have a bad penalty, and Virginia gets to score points, and then BC never really recovered there. Then you see Virginia Tech. BC doesn't come out at all in the first half and lays a complete egg, but then has an amazing third quarter, brings it to a one-score game, has it fourth down to in Virginia Tech territory to possibly make it a tie game, and then don't convert that fourth down, and Virginia Tech goes on another roll. And then the past game against the past game against Louisville, you get up to a 20-point lead and then just can't hold on to the end and not able to execute. And I think the frustration of not playing a complete game is something that Coach O'Brien has addressed, and it's something that he's really looking to him and his staff to figure out.
Do you think the bye week coming at this point in the season is going to help them kind of make those adjustments and for the back half of the year?
Well, it's kind of weird, and I think you guys, meaning Syracuse, kind of had that same unique bye schedule. BC's had 2 byes in 4 weeks, and then you mix in 2 weekday games. So BC hasn't played a Saturday game in a while. So it was a good opportunity to get some of the veteran guys some rest this second bye week and get some look at some of the younger guys. But it's does it an execution aspect, or is it a scheme aspect? I think that's what BC's going to try to figure out this week. I think they did a lot of self scouting in the first bye week, and now I think it's just about getting back that mindset that got them off to the good start and figuring out how to replicate that.
Something when you look at this roster that looks a little bit weird when you look at the statistics. They've only attempted 1 field goal, and the punting game has kind of been lower tier in the ACC. What's up with the special teams? Why are they not kicking field goals? And what's up with the punting game?
Well, on the field goal aspect of it, it's a lot of it is based on time, time in the game, distance, and the amount of yardage that they have in some of these fourth downs. It's like there's never a time where BC has passed up like a surefire field goal attempt on like a 4th and 5 or something to recklessly go for it on fourth down, kind of like Philadelphia Eagles, I guess. it's just weird. It's more the times they want to go. It's fourth and short, so they feel really strong about the play that they have called in the offensive line that they want to go for it and make a statement with that. I don't think it's anything in the place kicking game. I don't really think that there's an apprehension there. On the other side, the punting game has just been atrocious to say the least. Its inability to move and change field position was significantly detrimental, especially in the Louisville game, because not only did BC go 3 and out for 3 or 4 straight possessions in the second half there, the punts were under 30 yards. So you can almost look at those like turnovers because you're really not moving the field. You're barely getting past the first down marker. So the inability to punt and change field position has been a massive thorn in the side of BC, and they're trying to figure it out. At the end of last game, they went back to the original punter, Sam Candotti, who was started out the year, and then he was benched, and they brought in a new kicker, and now it looks like they're going back to Sam. I don't know, but hopefully they get that figured out because it's really put a strain on the defense because now the defense is having to defend a shorter amount of field, and they're not able to kind of pin their ears back when they're pinned, inside the 10 or inside the 20.
You mentioned pin your ears back. Donovan Ezeraku has been on fire this year for the Boston College defensive line. How much is his impact on the defense as a whole when he's getting home to the quarterback so often?
Yeah, he's the leader of that defense. He had had big expectations going into last year and didn't kind of live up to them in his mind. I am so impressed with his motor. He's not a 6'5" pass rusher, right? He's 6'1", 6'2", long arms, but he's flexible. He's got bendability around the end, but he's got a relentless motor. If you look at the Virginia Tech game, he hunts a running back down the field 20 yards to strip him and get the ball back for the defense. Like Donovan, when he's on the field, he is a problem. He can beat inside with some power moves. He can throw some of his speed rushing moves in there as well. And then his motor is just really tough for offensive lines to keep up with him an entire game because he just doesn't stop competing every moment he's on the field and really sets the tone for that defense.
He's been a big reason why BC's third in the ACC in scoring defense. They've given up 42 and 31 points in the last 2 games. I don't know if this is a coincidence, but coinciding with Amari Jackson's injury against UVA. How big is that loss at the cornerback position, especially when defending the pass?
Yeah, his loss has been big. The thing that's hurt BC is their inability to get off the field on third downs. I think in critical times, I think that's been a tough part for them. They did a good job at the beginning of the year of giving up yards, bending and not breaking, and forcing teams to kick field goals. And that just hasn't happened these last couple games. So I think that's been the issue is their red zone defense lately. They've had teams moving the ball in the most of the year. It's just that they're able to hold them to field goals. So Amari Jackson's loss is huge because he was playing number one, corners and playing everyone's number one receiver. So when you move that down the list, your depth is tested, and there's a lot of young guys back there. You're going to see a couple freshmen back there playing corner for BC because there's just not a ton of depth at that position. So that loss on the depth side and the talent side has really hurt them.
Switching back over to the offense, Thomas Castellanos, obviously the go-to name on the offensive side, the quarterback. How have you seen him develop the most from last year to this year in his first year with Bill O'Brien as the head coach?
He's doing a good job of taking care of the football. I think Coach O'Brien and Coach Lawing and Coach DiBiaso has really talked to him about not being as reckless as he was with the football last year. Too many turnovers. So he's done a good job of taking care of the football, but I'd like to see him kind of come back with a little bit more of that kind of freewheeling style. It's not that I don't want to play within the confines of the offense, but I think he's thinking about turnovers too much and he's being a little too indecisive these last couple games. And Thomas is such a competitor that when he makes a mistake, he almost compounds it by trying to make up for it with making another big play. So in that aspect, I know it kind of sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but I want to see some of that decisiveness when he decides to run the football because that really puts a strain on defenses, right? And then I really want to see him when he decides to throw it to let it go. And I feel like he's holding back a little bit because he's worried about turning the football over. And you can't really play that position if you're constantly worried about turning the football over and having that apprehension, because then you start questioning your eyes. You don't play on time. Am I reading this right? And then you start second guessing, and then you're a half a click late. And in football, if you're a half a click late, you're dead, because it's either going to cause a sack, it's going to cause a tackle for loss, it's going to cause a turnover. So in the end, need him to just play more decisively and with that kind of swagger and confidence that he had last year, but without turning the football over. So you got to find that good balance.
Yeah, I know it's always hard to calculate quarterback rushing stats in college football because they count sacks as negative rushing yards. But going in, and Boston College are both playing in their ninth game that like they did last year, and he has Castellanos has I think 400 less rushing yards than he did last year at this point. As a rusher, though, it provides quarterback running game, running back a rushing game with Robichaux and Ward. How would you describe the rushing game for Boston College with that kind of three-headed monster at the top? Turbo Richard also in there as well.
Yeah, and I think it's actually more than 400 yards less. I don't think he's even close to the number he was last year. And because some of that is the sacks, I know, as you mentioned, with the running game, I think it's great to see the difference that Ward brings to the game. He can run it inside the tackles, but he's got a little speed in the perimeter that helps. But he's also very valuable in the passing game. If you look at the games BC has done well offensively, they've included the running backs in the passing game. Ward is a tough matchup if teams want to play man, because you're putting a linebacker or a safety out on him in space, and he can exploit that. He's done a really good job. He's very good in running around. Sometimes running back can be a little stiff, running in and out of cuts, especially outside the numbers. He does a really good job of being definitive in his reads and his routes, and he's got good hands. He's done very well in the passing game. Turbo Richard was coming on. He was out last game with a little bit of an injury. Hopefully he's back. He adds a little speed to the game. He's a little, stockier, so he can get lost behind those running backs a little more. And then Robichaux is just that downhill guy that's going to really punish you in between the tackles. Very good in the passing game with his protections. He's really good at blocking pass pro wise. You watch him during the games. BC trusts him a lot in that aspect. And I think that's something you really see in the running back position, is their ability to play all three downs and be able to be effective in the passing game, whether it's as a receiving threat or blocking up for protection.
When you look at the Syracuse BC matchup, Boston College won last year 17-10 in kind of an ugly game where SU's quarterback threw 4 interceptions. But if you look at the history, SU's won 3 straight at Boston College. Is there a trend there? Do you think that, or is kind of just SU going into Chestnut Hill and getting the job done in those specific years?
Yeah, I mean, last year's interception fest was tough to watch. I had a lot of SMHs during that game. Every team is different year after year, and by the time you swing back around and it's 2 years later, the identity of the teams are so much different. I mean, Syracuse is a completely different team this year than they were last year. Boston College pretty much has the same personnel. They didn't lose anybody in the transfer portal. They added a couple guys on both sides of the ball, but nothing that dramatically changes from on that side for BC at least. So it's really tough to kind of compare that this year, because just the different style just in the offense in which Syracuse is running versus last year. And I've had a chance to see a bunch of games for Syracuse and just really impressed with Coach Brown and his ability to get those guys to play hard with some discipline. And their offense is just clicking, minus the Pitt game, which was kind of a tough break. That defense for Pitt is pretty tough. I think McCord has been outstanding, showed great resolve this past week versus Virginia Tech to be able to, to battle through that and to come back and get a win in overtime. Like he's got them playing, Coach Brown has got them playing like very mentally tough and strong. And I think McCord is a big part of that. I know he's got a lot of interceptions, and I'm sure a lot of people in Syracuse have a lot of SMH moments too, but he does have 21 touchdown passes on the year. So
yeah.
Sometimes you have to play that risk reward game, as long as it's not putting you in the in the crunch like it did in the Pitt game. But outside of that, he's really been producing, and he's not afraid to throw the ball into tight windows. And you kind of need to have that kind of mentality as a quarterback.
It is funny at this point in the season, after the Pitt game, he's had 6 interceptions the last 2, which is half of his interceptions on the year. Obviously, the 5 coming against Pitt. It's like it's weird to look at because he's on the verge of basically breaking almost every Syracuse quarterback record for a season, whether it's passing yards, touchdowns. He's almost in the top 10 career passing yards, and he's not even done with a one full season. But everyone just looks at that pick game and is like,
Right.
what the hell just happened? In that kind of sense of it.
Yeah. I mean, and I've been on the other end of that. It's just sometimes you make a good read and you and the ball goes through a guy's hands. Sometimes you think
Yeah.
you got the juice to fit it in a window and you don't. Sometimes the defense makes a great play and baits you into one. The amount of times that I'm sure he's thrown it and wanted to do the yo-yo and pull it back as soon as it comes out of his hand, yeah, I'm sure he does. But he can't stop playing with that kind of swagger and confidence that got him out in the first 7 games. As quarterbacks, as you'll see and you'll hear all the great ones tell you that you got to be able to move past it. Mistakes are a part of the game. Those other 10 guys in the huddle are relying on you to understand what's going on and to not feel scared or worried about all that. You're in charge no matter what, and you have that supreme confidence. So he's just got to be able to keep that mentality going for himself and not get caught up in what some of the bad luck or some of the bad decisions he's made. He just needs to kind of move on and process it from there.
You mentioned your quarterback experience, the 100th anniversary of the first Syracuse Boston College game back in 1924. Do you have a favorite memory playing Syracuse as a BC QB?
Yeah, probably our first game when we won in '94 because we lost the next 4. I think would be I think we did, as a matter of fact. That was a really good game. We dominated that game at home 31-0. But first time going to the Carrier Dome was always cool. I think I remember in '95 we went out there. I was actually redshirting that year, which was my sophomore year. And that was, McNabb, Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison took a punt back. It was a really cool environment. We had a couple good games and a good couple battles with them when I was there. And knowing Donovan McNabb and playing against him was always a great challenge to see that. And we just came up on the wrong end a couple times, but that was the heyday right then. I mean, that was when Syracuse was really competing in a constant top 20 team in the country and competing for Big East championships. So I'm sure a lot of people in Syracuse would like to get back to those days, and it seems like Coach Brown's doing a good job of doing that with them right now.
Yeah, Coach Brown, when he got introduced, referring to the Pascaloni era a lot and wanting to
Yeah.
bring Syracuse back to that. One quick one before we let you go. Any keys to the game for Boston College to right the ship, get off the 3-game losing streak, and get back in the win column?
Yeah, I think it's fine the recipe to play a complete game, right? When BC's on, it looks really good. It does on both sides of the football. It looks really good, but when they're off, it looks really bad, and it's tough to watch. I think consistency, that would be the way to say it. I think they're striving for that right now, and then the ability, I would say, on offense to find some big plays. They've lacked some big plays in the last couple games. When you're able to throw a couple big plays up there, you don't have to drive 70, 80 yards, which, a lot of bad stuff can happen, whether it's penalties, turnovers, and other things. If you can throw some big plays in there, that will help. Defensively, they've done a good job of turning people over the last couple of weeks, but they haven't done a good job of controlling the run game. So I think BC really needs to be solid in the run game defensively. And really, I know it's crazy to think that you're going to want McCord to just sit back there and throw it, but if they can control the run game and get some turnovers in the passing game, and maybe McCord continues on the turnover streak, that would be a recipe for success. And like you mentioned, punting the ball much better and special teams contributing on the positive side of the ledger instead of the negative side.
Well, if someone forces Syracuse to throw the ball 60 times, they will certainly do it this year with Kyle McCord. So we'll see what Boston College decides to do. It should be a good game on Saturday. Thanks again for taking the time, Scott.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.